It was the position of Avicenna that matter obeys much more to separate substances for the production of some effect than to contrary agents in matter. Hence he states that the apprehension of the aforesaid substances is sometimes followed by some effect in these lower ones, either of rains or of the health of some sick person, without any bodily acting medium. The sign of which indeed he received from our soul, which when it is strong in its imagination, the body is changed to mere apprehension. But it would not fall if that beam were placed on the ground, so that it could not fear the fall. It is also evident that the body warms to the mere apprehension of the soul, as happens in the lustful or the angry, or even become chilled, as happens in those who fear. And sometimes it is also changed from a strong apprehension to some illness, for example a fever, or even leprosy. And in this way he says that if the soul is pure, not subject to bodily passions, and strong in its apprehension, not only the proper body, but also external bodies obey its apprehension. So much so that upon his apprehension, a sick person is healed, or something else of this kind happens. And this he posits to be the cause of fascination, namely, because someone's soul, strongly affected by malice, has an impression of harm on someone, especially a child, who because of the tenderness of the body is easily susceptible to the impression. Hence he wills that much further to the apprehension of separate substances, which he posits are the souls or movers of the worlds. Certain effects in these inferiors should follow without the action of any corporeal agent. This position is quite consistent with his other positions, for he posits that all substantial forms flow into these lower ones separated from substance, and that corporeal agents are nothing but disposing matter to receive the impression of a separate agent. This indeed is not true according to the teaching of Aristotle, who proves in 7 Metaphysics that the forms which are in matter are not separate from the forms, but from the forms which are in matter. For in this way a similitude will be found between the doer and the done. Even the example which is taken of the impression of the soul on the body does not help his intention much. For no change of the body follows from apprehension unless some affection, such as joy or fear or concupiscence or some other passion, is attached to the apprehension. Passions of this kind occur with some determined movement of the heart, from which results a further alteration of the whole body, either according to a local movement or according to some alteration. Hence, it still remains that the apprehension of a spiritual substance does not alter the body, except by means of local motion. Now, what he brings about fascination does not happen because the apprehension of one immediately changes the body of the other, but because, by means of a movement of the heart, it changes the joined body, the change of which reaches the eye, by which something external can be infected, especially if it is easily unchangeable. Just as the eye of the menstruating woman infects the mirror. A spiritual substance, therefore, created by its own power, cannot introduce any form into corporeal matter, as if the matter were obedient to itself in order to come forth into the act of some form, except through the local motion of some body. For this is by virtue of the created spiritual substance, so that the body obeys itself in local motion. But by moving a body locally, it uses some naturally active substances to produce certain effects, just as the smith's art uses fire to soften iron. But this is not miraculous, strictly speaking. Hence it remains that created spiritual substances do not work miracles by their own power. But I say by their own power, because nothing prevents such substances, insofar as they act in divine power, from working miracles. It also appears from this that one order of angels is specially appointed, as Gregory says, to work miracles. He also says that some saints sometimes work miracles out of power, not only out of intercession. However, it must be considered that when angels or demons use certain natural things for certain specific effects, they use them as certain instruments, just as a doctor uses certain herbs as instruments to heal. Now, from the instrument proceeds not only an effect corresponding to its own power, but also beyond its own power, inasmuch as it acts in the power of the principal agent. For a saw or an axe could not make a bed except insofar as they act as if moved by art to such an effect. Nor could natural heat generate flesh except by the power of the vegetable soul, which uses itself as a kind of instrument. It is fitting, therefore, that some higher effects should proceed from the natural things themselves, from the fact that spiritual substances use them as if they were certain instruments. Therefore, although such effects cannot simply be called miracles because they proceed from natural causes, they are still wonderful to us in two ways. In the first place, from the fact that through spiritual substances, such causes are attached to their proper effects in a manner unusual to us. Hence also the works of talented artists are rendered wonderful when others do not perceive how they work. In another way, from the fact that natural causes are applied to produce certain effects, they derive some virtue from the fact that they are the instruments of spiritual substances. And this goes more to the nature of the miracle